So chapter 2 brought plenty of new information, secrets and clues, things to help us try and figure out what exactly went on inside this factory. But like any good horror mystery game, chapter 2 brings more questions than answers. In today's video, I'm going to highlight 5 questions that I want to be answered in Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 and beyond. Now these are just some of my personal favourites. There are absolutely loads of things that I hope we get answers for in Chapter 3, but I'm also going to offer some of my speculations and theories on each of these points as well. So before we get into today's video, just a very quick announcement. If you didn't see my post already, I do now have a second channel, or should I say, I already had a second channel, but I've changed it. The Tericho Talks channel is now Tericho Live. So if you like live streams, all of my future live streams will be on that channel. And if you don't like live streams, then that's fine. You don't have to subscribe to it or anything. With all that out of the way, here are 5 questions I want answers to in Poppy Playtime Chapter 3. Number 5. Where are all the staff? Now this was something that was built up in Chapter 1. Don't forget, right at the beginning of the game, the letter that we get tells us that the staff are all still in the factory. And as I've previously discussed, we don't know exactly what that means. It could mean that some of them have been turned into dolls, or it could mean that some of them are still alive. Although, after 10 years inside this factory, I highly doubt that. But either way, one thing that I really want to find out is where exactly are these staff members? Considering we know that some of these dolls are not exactly friendly, and considering that we can see many dolls around this factory that have been ripped to shreds, it's very interesting that we haven't seen a single human body here. Now we have seen what seems to be blood, although it's very difficult to tell considering a lot of these dolls also seem to be covered in blood, which means that either these dolls can bleed, or these dolls are filled with another substance that just looks like blood. So it's very difficult to tell exactly what is or isn't blood in this factory. But aside from that, we haven't seen a single deceased human, or an alive one, in this factory at all. Now that strikes very odd to me. We can pretty confidently say that many people in this factory died. After all, if they're not dead, where did they go? So why haven't we seen a single body? Well, either these people are being kept somewhere, or they've been taken by Experiment 1006. Now we did see what appears to be bone and potentially veins and arteries on 1006's arm, but you could get all of that from one body. So unless Experiment 1006 is much bigger than we thought, we still have a lot of bodies unaccounted for. Now I don't know exactly how many staff were on hand at the time of the collapse, but we can hear many people in the background screaming during the first chapter. It's definitely an obvious choice by Mob Games not to show any deceased people, and I don't think it's for rating concerns considering, well, the game doesn't even have an official rating. So why not include any deceased people? Quite simply, I believe that's because they're being held somewhere. Perhaps Experiment 1006 is keeping them for some reason, or perhaps they're still being experimented on. Either way, I'm sure we're going to find out exactly what happened to these staff members at some point in the future. They were most likely killed by 1006, but after that, who knows? Number 4. Where's Bron? So ever since Chapter 1, we've had a number of characters teased throughout the game. The most obvious ones being Huggy Wuggy and Poppy, but we've also had a few from the Chapter 1 trailer that haven't really made a proper appearance yet. Some of these characters that we haven't seen come to life yet are Catbee, Candy Cat and Bron. But I actually think we're going to be seeing these characters very soon. At the end of Chapter 2, it looks like the character, the protagonist, is going to the daycare center, or as it's known in the game, Playcare. Now I do think that Playcare is a play on words of the words daycare, which is usually a place where you would leave young children for the day. I don't think that's a coincidence, and I do think that this part of the factory is going to be where the younger children were being looked after until they were old enough to do the experiments. Now what's very interesting about this is you can see that some of the toys that Playtime co-created definitely seem to have age brackets. You can see that Mommy Longlegs was aimed to a slightly older child. You can see this from the design of the doll, but you can also see it in the marketing and the trailers. In my opinion, some of the dolls in this factory were aimed at a younger audience. Usually toys aimed for younger children have more exaggerated features, softer ones that aren't as dangerous because as we know, young children like to put pretty much everything in their mouths. And something else that is incredibly popular with young children are dinosaurs. Now this is pure speculation, but I believe in the daycare center we're going to be seeing these 3 toys. As I've said, these toys are more suitable for younger children. and there's nothing to suggest that Playtime Co. haven't created living versions of these ones just like they did with Huggy Wuggy and Mommy Longlegs. But what's really interesting about this is we've had so much teasing from Bron. He was in the first trailer where he looked incredibly creepy, and we've seen 2 versions of Bron in Chapter 2, but none of them came to life. We also have the promise by Bron that he is the scariest dinosaur. All of this leads me to believe that we will be seeing Bron in the Playcare Center. But what makes this incredibly creepy is that we know Bron likes to eat. He likes to eat a lot. And considering that I'm guessing he's in the area with the youngest children, yeah, that could be an incredibly dark moment in this series. Either way, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Mob Games makes Bron, Catbee and Candy Cat creepy. After all, they did a pretty good job with Mommy Longlegs, so I'm excited to see what they come up with next. Number 3. Who is Poppy? So Poppy has probably been the most mysterious character of this series so far, along with the protagonist. We know almost nothing about Poppy. We don't know who she is or was, and what she wants. It does seem to be the case that Poppy was the original successful experiment. After all, Poppy was created in the 1960s, and it seems like there's only been a handful of experiments since then that were successful. Chapter 2 potentially gave us some more clues as to who Poppy could be. My best guess is that Poppy is the person that Elliot Ludwig lost. Probably his daughter, but at this point it could be anybody. If that's the case, that would have many implications. For example, if this was a child when she was transferred into Poppy, does she still have the brain of a child now? Or has she grown up over these years like you would expect a normal person? I really do think we won't know exactly what Poppy wants until we find out who she is, or again, who she was. Her mystery identity is only made more intriguing when we consider the fact that she had a very special place in this factory. She had this whole room dedicated to her, and she seemed to have been protected by this case. A case that, yes, became her prison, but also seemed to keep her safe. A case that we released her from. I really do hope eventually we figure out exactly who Poppy is, and I'm sure it's going to be a big twist surprise for all of us. Number 2. How exactly were people transferred into dolls? Now this is something that has basically been confirmed at this point. We know that people somehow are being transferred into dolls, or their consciousness or something is going on that is creating these living dolls. But yet, we still don't know exactly how this process works, and how it works could have huge implications for the story. Let me give you an example. So it's possible that people are being transferred into these dolls, maybe their entire brain is. If that's the case, that would mean that these dolls require sustenance, something that we know 1006 doesn't. But in contrast, it's also possible that these living dolls were brought to life using people. Maybe there are no people inside these living dolls, maybe these living dolls were just brought to life in some sort of Frankenstein experiment. Maybe they weren't living to begin with, but they are now. And as I've said before, at this point it's equally as possible that this is just some sort of demonic ritual. Yes, it does seem like this is all scientific, they do talk about the scientific process, but let's be honest, can we really trust anything that people in Playtime Co. have said? These scientists could be doing absolutely anything and using the science to cover it up. So at this point we have absolutely no idea how people are being transferred into dolls or what this scientific process is. It seemed like we were going to get some more information about this after we saw what appeared to be an operating room in Chapter 2, although we didn't quite manage to make it in there, did we? I really do hope in future chapters we get some more concrete evidence of exactly what this scientific process is. After all, it's likely to be sci-fi mumbo jumbo, but I would still like some sort of explanation. I would like to know exactly what's going on and how these living dolls are being brought to life. Number 1. Who exactly is the protagonist? Now this subject has been quite hotly debated in my comments ever since I started making theories on Poppy Playtime. We have absolutely no idea who the protagonist is aside from the fact that they are supposedly an ex-employee. Now, as I've said previously, one of my very first theories on this game is that we ourselves could be a doll. This would be very similar to the twist in BioShock that I won't give away here just in case you've never played it, go play it if you haven't. But the idea that we ourselves could be a doll, perhaps not even knowing that we're a doll, is a very interesting concept to me. We've also had some other points that could reinforce this in Chapter 2. The idea that Experiment 1006 is the prototype but not the final experiment could mean that we ourselves were the final experiment. That would be a very interesting contrast to 1006. 1006 being a flaw in the scientific process, and us being the perfection of the scientific process. The alpha and the omega, if you will. Although I guess in this case, Poppy would be the alpha and we would be the omega, but you see what I'm saying. I've already talked previously that we have absolutely no information about the protagonist. We have no reflection, we have no other information, and we've never talked once. Even though Poppy has, we've never said a word. We've also got the fact that Poppy calls us perfect, which could support this idea, although it could just mean that we as human beings are perfect. Knowing as a fact that Poppy, for example, is very small and very weak, you can't really consider her perfect, and maybe when she looks at us, she sees us as perfect, which I said before could give a hint to the intentions of Poppy. Go and check out that video if you haven't already. We even have some other fan theories that have popped up because of this fact. In the area where we see the slides with all the names, there is one final slide that we can't quite figure out the name of yet. Some people have suggested that this could be us. After all, we are an ex-employee, but we don't know at what level. At this point, we could have been a janitor or we could have been a partner. There is absolutely no evidence to suggest either way who we were or what our role was. But it is also very interesting that Mommy Longlegs immediately recognized us as an ex-employee of this factory. How would she know this unless we were a very prominent figure? After all, this factory did seem to have a lot of employees just looking at the size of it. So the fact that Mommy Longlegs recognizes us immediately means she's either very intelligent or we're very recognizable. Something else which makes this entire thing even more strange though is the idea that Mob Games, surprise surprise, has coming out with even more merch. If you look at the YouTubes that are being released for Poppy Playtime, we can see 3. Poppy Huggy, and then the protagonist. But the protagonist is just shown as one of these grab pack simulation crash dummy things. Again, a very deliberate choice by the developers. Now this could just mean that the protagonist is a nobody, that their backstory isn't important and who they are doesn't matter, but it's also very cheeky. This looks like a toy, and I've said this before, there is absolutely nothing to say that we ourselves aren't a toy. Either way, I think that Mob Games are keeping this one to be a surprise twist later on, and whichever direction they go with it, I'm very interested to find out. So those are 5 questions I want answers for in Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, but let me know your thoughts. What do you want answers to in Poppy Playtime Chapter 3? Are there things that you really need to know that I missed, or do you agree with every single one on my list? Either way, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.